Hey, Greg here, founder of Wrestling-Divas.webs.com, your source for highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in professional wrestling. My next special guest is a third-generation competitor in the wrestling industry whose family's wrestling legacy speaks for itself. She is a former Florida Championship Wrestling Women's Champion and former Queen of FCW. Otherwise known as the Ultra Flex Fab, Ultra Glam, Ultra Diva Raquel Diaz, my next special guest, and I'm honored to have her, is former WWE Diva Shaul Guerrero. Hi, Shaul. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for joining me. It's an honor.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you were a part of a recent podcast interview this past week, and you talked about your departure from the WWE and everything that you plan to do on your own and all the endeavors that you plan to pursue. What I would like to know from you is, and I'm not trying to imply here that the door isn't open for a return, but what about the whole experience of being a part of that company are you going to take away from you, not only as a competitor in wrestling, should you choose to pursue that further, but also your personal background as well, because you learn a lot of lessons being on the road and training and whatnot.
You know, WWE gives you so much to learn as with growing up. I started there when I was 19 years old, and you learn so much about politics and how to handle yourself, you know, as a good person, and also, you know, how to keep your integrity alive within that business, within any business in entertainment. And as a competitor, I would definitely, they teach you how to work really hard, and it's all about what you make of it. And, you know, you get so much confidence when you're in WWE and just in the wrestling industry. So I'm just going to really take away, like, what I did there, you know, because I feel like I did a great job, and, you know, to remember that little bit of badassery whenever I'm, you know, pursuing a different endeavor.
Now, initially, when you got the offer to be a part of the company, not everyone who has a family legacy in wrestling chooses to pursue wrestling in general itself. So what about the whole thought process you went through before signing really made you want to be a part of this company?
I mean, I always wanted to be a part of the company, you know, ever since I was a little girl, but I never had the confidence to really pursue it. When I was a little girl, you know, my mom and dad would put me in the dressing room with the other divas, and I would just look at them and be like, oh, my God, they're so beautiful, and, you know, they're like, I used to think of them as like warriors, you know, because they would be like these gorgeous women who would go out there and kick some ass. And I just had a lot of self-confidence issues when I was younger, and even in my adult life, and I just never thought I was pretty enough or good enough to be a part of a business like this. And, you know, when Johnny Laurinaitis kind of ignited that possibility that I could be a diva, I just kind of took it and ran with it, really. But it wasn't until, you know, I got into the ring that I really knew that I was going to love this business and kind of had that, you know, fire to keep going, and also having a connection with my dad. Any way I can be a part of the business, really, I feel so close to him, and that's what really kept motivating me when I continued to pursue wrestling.
Now, there's a big difference between saying and doing, and you can say that about pretty much anything, but especially wrestling when the demand is so high. So what was the first major lesson that this business taught you through experience that you wouldn't have been able to learn through word of mouth?
It hurts. I never knew how much work really went into this business and how much of an art form it is. One of my biggest regrets in life is that I never knew how amazing my dad was until I was really in the business and understood how much work went into this. I mean, I was always proud of him, you know, as a child, but you just have to know all about psychology. You have to be physically fit. You have to know how to work with all kinds of different people. And constantly, you know, with any form of entertainment, you're constantly told no to your face, or it's just such a battle either to get on TV or to get a match or to just simply have a good match. It's just so much trial and error, a lot of error, and you don't know until you're really in the business. You don't know until you're in the ring. You don't know until you're actually bumping around and, you're really taking in how much it hurts with how much passion you really want for this business. So I definitely agree that, it's one thing to say you want to be a wrestler, and it's something else to actually go out there and get it.
Now, you've stated in other interviews that debuting as Raquel Diaz with the Ascension in FCW, creatively speaking, worked for and against you, as opposed to using your legitimate name. Now, behind the scenes, of course, when you enter the industry with that type of name, and, Guerrero is probably one of the most famous names in wrestling history and always will be, and coming along with that, there's this huge stigma that surrounds you, and certainly other people must have had certain expectations or standards for you to meet. How did you approach that? Because, having a last name like that can be both a blessing and a curse in a sense.
Yes, Guerrero is such a prestigious name in wrestling, and I'm very proud to be a part of the Guerrero family. There was a lot of pressure I think I put on myself in a way, because my dad was such an amazing in-ring technician, and he was amazing on the mic. So was my mom, and so I felt like I needed to be at their level, and I wanted to, just be amazing like how they were. But I feel like that kind of, contributed to my demise, really, because I was trying to be, I was trying to be like them. I was trying to be this perfect robot of a person, and that really fueled my eating disorder, which I talked about in previous interviews, and it led to me, just not really being myself. And it wasn't until I realized that I can't be my father, and no one ever can. I can't be Vicky Guerrero. I just had to be me, and I think with not having the Guerrero name tied to me really allowed me to explore, who is, at the time I was Raquel Diaz, but it really led me to kind of soul search a little bit and be like, who is Shaul Guerrero? Who do I want to be? Not what, the wrestling industry wants me to be. So that was really tough, and I think that's like a lifelong journey, whether it's with a character or whether it's with yourself. But I felt like being a Guerrero really did help me, though, because it pushed me to be an aggressive competitor in the ring. It pushed me to work harder than I ever would have in another field, because wrestling is so dear to my family, and I just really wanted to give it all I could.
So I'm sure that growing up around that family, you saw a lot of things behind the scene in wrestling, and you saw a lot of injuries, you saw a lot of ups, you saw a lot of downs with the competitors. Was there any point that you said, no, but I'm not going to pursue this, because it is a very demanding lifestyle, and very few fans understand that. So how did you get over that kind of doubt within your head?
That's absolutely true when you say, that at one point I didn't want to be involved in wrestling at all. I think for a while when I was younger, I was very bitter towards it, because I felt like it took away my father, and then later on in life, when I was in those angsty teenage years and I didn't have my mom around, it really, got me kind of mad at it. But, whenever my mom or my dad would bring me backstage and I would just see how massive this production was and how much heart really goes into this business, and the high my dad would talk about when he would come back from having a match, just that it's worth it. And, that really fueled me. And also, like, with not being before I was in the wrestling industry, I was a performer myself in other areas, and I knew what it was to be in front of an audience and just the adrenaline you get, and it's unlike any other feeling in the world. And so to be presented with an opportunity to be able to work in front of audiences that are a lot bigger than what I was doing at the time, I really did jump at it. I think that was just the entertainer in me. And, I'm still working through the little tweaks in wrestling, that I'm still resentful towards. But at the end of the day, it's just another art form, and I am forever thankful, to the wrestling industry and also WWE for everything that they gave me, I felt like they took a lot away from me, probably just as a child, but they put food on the table for us for my entire life. And, I think just like being an entertainer really just fueled me to want to work in front of bigger audiences and be connected with my family in that way.
Now, looking at the big picture, wrestling is a part of the entertainment industry, and therefore you're judged on aesthetic qualities like your look and how you present yourself visually to the crowd. And with that comes a number of challenges that other people may not expect about being judged on that level. How did you deal with that? Because I know, especially because of the Internet, things can fly around and rumors can start, and some of that can get really ugly.
Recently I have been dealing with it so much healthier. Back then I didn't deal with it. My first run with WWE, I didn't deal with it very well at all. I cared a lot about what people thought of me, and with any negative comment I would get on the Internet, I would turn to, starvation, or I would turn to just unhealthy ways of coping, with negative criticism. But now, after I took that year off to really get into recovery and to explore who I am and my self-worth, now when I deal with negative criticism from anywhere, whether it's on the Internet or whether it's, or just a fan I meet on the street, it's simply just knowing who I am and staying concrete with that. And anytime I get the urge to want to change myself to please some Joe on the street or to please, some random wrestling fan on a site that may not like me, I just have to really dig deep and remember who I am, and also that people don't know me. They see a character on TV. They don't know who Shaul Guerrero is. They might know who Raquel Diaz is, but Shaul Guerrero just runs so much deeper, and I've gone through so much that people just don't know. And I just have to keep that intact and, just not let the haters get to me. Although I am thankful for the haters. They make you famous, don't they?
Now, you talked a lot about how, and I think everyone goes through this in life no matter what they do, but, you go off the path, if you will, and then you have to kind of find a way back at certain points, and then you go off it again, and then you find your way back. Hypothetically speaking, if you could turn back time and tell your former self who was struggling in different ways something that would help her get back on track, what do you think it would be?
I think it would be, and maybe you're not supposed to say this, but I would say to get my relationship with God back intact, because for a while I think I was angry at God for, taking my father away or not making my life easy and perfect. And, I think, at the end of the day, it's by the grace of God that I was able to come out of my disease and, to get my shit together, really. And, and also just to understand that life isn't perfect. I'm not going to have the perfect wrestling career. I'm not going to have a 5-star match every night. I'm not going to land every gig I want. And that's just something that's just what we all go through. We all have struggles and things don't go according to plan, and we can't bulletproof our life. That's what I was trying to do. I was just trying to be so perfect. That way I could never reach a point where I would have the possibility of getting fired or have a possibility of being looked at, in a negative way from a higher up in WWE. I was always constantly trying to be so perfect that eventually I just went down a spiraling road of just being angry at everybody and at myself, and it just led to a miserable lifestyle. And if I could just go back and tell myself, that God's got your back, and, stay true to who you are, and life isn't perfect, so you might as well just live it and live it to the fullest and not be afraid to make mistakes, that would definitely be what I would tell myself.
Now, moving on to what we see in front of the cameras as far as performance goes, your father was just an in-ring general as far as psychology goes with wrestling. I mean, seriously, he is one of the best ever, and many fans consider him to be the very best ever, and I can see why. But approaching the match as far as your characters go, because you went through a bunch of transformations, literally speaking, with Raquel, how did you approach your match from a character end, and what did you want fans to take away from yourself and that character while you were performing?
I wanted the fans to, as much as I say that I wanted to be my own performer and that I could never be my mother or my father, I did want to reflect something about them. And I loved my father's charisma, and his lying, cheating, and stealing always resonated with me so much because it made me laugh, and I'm sure millions of other people out there. And with my mother, how she was just hated so much, and how she was loud and threw her little temper tantrums. I loved those elements of my mom and dad's characters. And so I did want to have a little bit of that in my own wrestling, but to also be myself. And so with producing a character that I felt really stuck even through all of my transformations as Raquel, I felt that the audience would really hate somebody that was, brought up with a silver spoon in her mouth. My dad represented everything from, being from the barrio, and needing to, lie, cheat, and steal to get his way. And my mom just brought up her own character of just this manipulative cougar, which was hilarious. And so I just thought that, man, I feel like I would be really hated, and I would really resonate in everyone's mind if I was just this spoiled, rotten girl that threw temper tantrums like her mother, and would cheat to get her way because she always got her way because she was spoiled all of her life, like her father, light and to steal like her father, but just be a completely different entity from my mom and dad. And just that was really what I wanted to bring out, to get glimpses from my parents, but to still be just very distinctly different.
So with developing all these characters and all the workout routines that you have to do, all the bumps, all the pain, many people would consider this a lifestyle, and as far as to say an obsession. So there's a difference between a healthy obsession and a not healthy obsession, or an unhealthy one. How do you kind of make sure that anything that you do really in the entertainment industry, especially wrestling, will remain as a healthy obsession?
That's funny that you say that, because the wrestling industry really is a lifestyle. Whether you're in WWE or not, whether you're on the indie circuit, you have to eat, breathe, sleep wrestling. If you want to make it, I feel like, it just has to be your life. But I believe you got to keep a healthy relationship with it in order to really love it. I feel like when we overboard with wrestling, even as amazing as it is, it can turn into a job. And wrestling is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be about being that person that you never could be in real life and bringing it out into the ring. And so I feel like you got to keep your priorities straight. And for me personally, my family comes first. Right now I'm going to school, so my school has to come first, just because it's entertainment, and you never know which way entertainment's going to turn on you, whether for the better or for the worst, which I've learned recently. So, yeah, I keep my school first. I keep my boyfriend first. He's my family, and my mother and my sister. They are my priority, and then everything else after that that I get to do in entertainment, whether it's wrestling, acting, singing, it's a blessing, and I will do the very best that I can at it. But at the end of the day, wrestling's not going to keep you warm at night. Entertainment will not keep you warm at night. It's your family. So keeping that first is definitely important.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that segues beautifully into my next question, in that I always hear that the first rule about anything in entertainment is that you shouldn't say that it has happened until it has actually happened. And, of course, not everything that you want to do in entertainment, wrestling, what have you, goes your way. So how do you stay grounded when you work this hard for something and then you don't get a certain opportunity? Because after you got through with your first initial break with the WWE, you started to train again, but we didn't see you on TV for that second run.
Yeah, at first, I'm not going to lie, I was devastated when WWE didn't work out. I thought it was just a dream of mine that was for sure going to come true because of how hard I worked and how, just involved I was in it emotionally, mentally, physically. But, it's just, with wrestling or with anything in entertainment, my mom would always tell me, don't get excited about anything until you have the mic in your hand and you are doing it in front of a live audience. Like, do not get excited about anything until you were about to walk out there and do it. Because, so many ideas float around backstage. One minute you're doing this gimmick and the next minute, they're completely changing it, and the next minute you only have 1 minute out there to make it happen. And so much happens in the entertainment industry like that, which makes it amazing and fun and exciting. But, it's all a matter of, stay grounded, stay humble, and don't get excited until you're actually out there doing it. And, I feel like everything happens for a reason. Even though I felt like WWE was going to be a for sure thing for me, it wasn't. And that just means that God has something better out there for me that I don't know about yet or that I don't understand just yet. And that's okay. And that's just a coping thing I'm still dealing with every day. And so, yeah, it's just stay grounded and don't get too excited about anything. But when you're doing it, live it up and live it to the fullest, which I'm really happy I did when I was at FCW. That was such a great time in the short time I had in NXT.
Now, when you talk about the future and everything like that, it can be quite difficult to deal with when there's a lot of uncertainty. And certainly when you're working with any company, I mean, you don't have any guarantees, like you said. But they say that once you enter the entertainment industry, for better or worse, depending on what your case is, you never truly leave it. So how do you think everything you've done so far will affect your future decisions, not only in entertainment, but in life in general?
With WWE and everything they prepare you for, they prepare you at NXT for anything could go wrong, and they just train you just like a super professional there to handle anything and to handle it like a star. So, I still got that training even though I didn't get to be on TV and, carry it out. So with what they train me to do, I definitely put it in my work that I do now. Whether it's school, I know to go the extra mile to stand out. They always constantly tell you that, go the extra mile, show up for an extra practice, take a couple extra bumps and do what you got to do, to stand out. And so I definitely do that now, whether it's with school or the entertainment industry. I just know that everything I learned in WWE, whether it was a negative experience or a good one, that I'm prepared to take on the world of, right now I'm looking into getting into acting. I'm doing modeling right now. So I just know how to handle everything and to handle it like a superstar and to handle it, like a class act. And I will be forever thankful to WWE for teaching me all those things. And, I fully intend to carry that out in wherever the wind blows me in this next chapter of my life.
Now, before we wrap up, you signed with them, I believe, when you were like 19, and that's at quite the young age to get started in any entertainment endeavor. Do you think it would have played out a lot differently had you waited until your, say, mid-20s? And do you have any regrets over signing that young and getting used to the industry in that way at such a young age when you're still developing into your adulthood?
I have no regrets. Like I said before, everything happens for a reason. And, I mean, I do wonder what my career would have been like if I hadn't taken that time off for my recovery. I do wonder that. I'm not going to lie. But I'm not going to sit around, and have regrets. everything happens for a reason, and I would not take that year off back. Because it taught me how to be a better person, how to be healthy, and hopefully I can help other people that are struggling like I do with eating disorder and to help them. So I have no regrets with that, and even with being let go from WWE, as hard as that was, I really don't have any regrets because I think something is better for me on the horizon, and I just got to wait and figure out what it is. And so with this next chapter in my life, I just fully intend to take everything I learned, even as young as I was at 19, all the way to recently, and just apply it to my new life. And I'm actually really happy I signed so young because I still got a lot of time ahead to pursue whatever I want.
So before we can get to how fans and endeavors can contact you, this is one of my most favorite questions to ask. If you could sum up your experience as a professional wrestler using just one word, what would it be?
Challenging.
I know that certainly there are a lot of fake people out there who like to pose and, pretend to be someone else that they're not online and social media and all of that. So how can fans or serious contacts get in touch with you if they want to hire you for an event or they want to see you wrestle because you haven't closed the door on that at all? How can they get in contact with you?
The most successful way to get in contact with me would be through my Twitter. I am active both at Raquel Diaz and at Shaul Guerrero. And you can also contact me at my email address, which gsmallville16@aol.com. Lame address, but it's me. And I also have a talent manager named Randy Quintana, who I will be working with very closely in the near future for a lot of projects, and he really oversees everything that I do in the entertainment industry. So I will be putting up his contact information very soon as well. So if I have plenty of avenues for you guys to get a hold of me, and I am open for booking, and I'm just ready to go out there and kick some ass. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Shaul, and it's the first time that I've interviewed a third-generation superstar of your caliber. I really enjoyed listening to your insight, and I wish you all the best of luck. It really seems like you're pretty well-grounded, and best of luck to you in your endeavors. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to everyone else for tuning in. Be sure to check out www.wrestling-divaz.webs.com for more content, and follow the website on Twitter at Wrestling Divas, again with the Z at the end, for all the latest news and updates.